Hey, what is going on, guys? RVZ Stealth here, and in today's video, I'm going to give you my opinion on the best AD carries for Season 4, patch 4.16. First up, I have Jinx. Pros to Jinx are she has really good CC for an AD carry. Most AD carries don't have 2 CC abilities, which makes her strong in that aspect. Her ultimate is really strong because it has an execute on it, so you can use it to pick off low health enemies really easily. She has good poke in lane with her Q. She is an insane tower pusher when you max out your Q, which I like to do on Jinx. She just shreds towers if you do so. And her passive is really strong for team fighting and also for pushing towers. In team fights, if you get that first kill with Jinx, then you're just going to be zipping around, and it will be really hard for your enemies to jump onto you. And when you're pushing towers with Jinx, if the enemy is coming in trying to save it, then with your passive, you can just finish it off and escape really quickly. She has great combos in lane. For example, Blitzcrank and Leona are really strong with Jinx because if Blitzcrank lands a hook, then Jinx can combo that up by putting her Flame Chompers behind the enemy, and it'll either force them to fight you guys straight up or burn their flash. So she's got really strong combos or synergies. Cons to Jinx are she has no mobility, and this is the main reason why she's not higher on this list. If she had some sort of mobility, because she's got such good late game damage, she would be higher, but I think for the best AD carries in solo queue, they need to have some sort of mobility. And she's quite weak if behind as well, so you have to make sure that you don't fall behind or else you'll be quite useless. Next up, I have Kog'Maw. Pros to Kog'Maw are he's probably one of the best hyper carries in the game. He scales insanely well into the late game. He's got really good poke with his W, and especially once he hits 6. He's hard to zone in lane because of his W. He can use it to stay back and farm from a safe distance. And it's hard for your enemies to trade with you because when you have your W up, it'll give you that extra range, so you can use that to poke your enemies and they will not be able to trade with you. Cons to Kog'Maw are he really needs peel in team fights, because if he gets it, he's going to do so much damage, but if he doesn't, then he's probably going to get blown up pretty quickly, unless you are mechanically skilled. I wouldn't recommend playing Kog'Maw unless you do have good mechanics as an AD carry, because it's really easy to get caught out with him in the assassin meta right now. So if you aren't mechanically skilled, then I'd recommend playing an AD carry that's got some sort of mobility. But if you are good, and you're confident in your play as an AD carry, then definitely pick up Kog'Maw because his damage is so insane. Next up, I have Lucian. So pros to Lucian are he does have mobility. He is a good lane bully because he's got good poke with his Q and his W. He has good wave clear with his ultimate, and a Braum and Lucian lane is super strong. If you can duo up with a buddy and just play this lane, you're probably going to win most of the time. And his ult hurts even more now when you build a Youmuu's Ghostblade, which seems to be the path for most Lucian players. When you have the active up on Youmuu's, you're going to do a lot of damage with your ultimate. And he's actually really easy to kite with. When you use your W and you attack your opponent, you get some movement speed, and pair that with your E, it's really easy to kite with him. Cons to Lucian are he does have a short auto attack range, so champions like Caitlyn can poke him down really easily, and he doesn't scale as well as other AD carries into the late game. He's more of an early game and mid game AD carry, so if you don't do well in the early game, then you're not going to do so well late game. Next up, I have Corki. Pros to Corki are he's got really insane burst damage with his Q, ultimate, and E. He is a really good lane bully. He has great poke. He is very strong mid-game because he has such good Triforce synergy. Once he picks up this Triforce, he has such a huge power spike. He does AP and AD damage, so it's hard for your enemies to build against you. He is hard to lose lane with because he's got an escape in his W, so if the enemy jungler tries to come and gank you, then it's really easy to just escape with that, and he's also got really strong poke, so you can just poke your enemies down and just zone them from there. He has he is a low-risk, high-reward champion in my opinion because he's got such a strong early game, and he's also got the escape, so if you do well in that early game, you're going to be really strong in the mid game, and you're going to be able to siege towers really well because of his poke. And he can also stall out games really long because he's got good wave clear in all of his abilities. Cons to Corki are he doesn't scale into the late game as well as other champions like Kog'Maw, Jinx, and Tristana, and he's also quite weak if he's behind. Corki does really well in the early game, and if you cannot do well with him in the early game, then you're not going to be very useful come the late game. So last but not least, I have Tristana, and you guys probably aren't surprised with this pick. She is arguably the best hyper carry in the game other than Kog'Maw. She scales insanely well. She's got mobility in her W, which makes her super strong. She has resets on her W, so she can jump in, finish an enemy off, and jump out really quickly, or she can just use it to, she can use it really well in teamfights to catch up to her opponents. Her Q is also really strong because you don't really need to build attack speed early game with Tristana because her Q gives her so much attack speed, and if you just get an Infinity Edge and have your Q up, you're just going to be shredding your opponents. Her passive, in my opinion, is pretty OP because late game, you're going to be able to stay back, do so much damage, and with your ultimate and your W, it's going to be super hard for your enemies to jump onto you. And she's probably the safest AD carry in the game, and the one that you want to pick up if you're new to AD carry because she does have that self-peel with her ultimate, and she can escape with her W, so if you're new to AD carry, definitely pick up Tristana. And if you're not new to AD carry, I'd still recommend her because she's super strong. Cons to Tristana are her W, it feels kind of clunky to use. It has a delay when you press the button, so that's one of the cons to her. And she's also got somewhat of a weaker early game. Some AD carries like Corki can just bully her in lane because she doesn't really have much poke damage anymore after her E got nerfed. And I can't really think of any more cons for Tristana. She is the best AD carry in my opinion right now. So honorable mentions for this patch include Caitlyn, Draven, and Vayne. They are all quite strong. Caitlyn, she's still that good lane bully. Draven, if you are good with your mechanics on him, then you can carry games really hard because he does so much damage come late game. And Vayne, she is more of a mechanically intensive champion, and once again, if you are good with your mechanics, then she's a strong champion, but she's not the best champion for all players because she does require a lot of skill. So that's all for the video, guys. If you enjoyed, then be sure to like and subscribe for more League of Legends content, and as always, guys, I will see you in my next video.